Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Democratic Messaging Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Ranty, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. We have an incredible episode in store for you. Today's guest is none other than Representative Anna Eshoo, hailing from the 16th District of California. We've got a lot to talk about, so stay tuned. But before we dive into our conversation with the representative, let's catch you up on some recent political happenings. Just minutes ago, Republicans made a bold move by booting Jim Jordan from his fourth attempt at running for House Speaker. You can't make this up. We'll be sure to dissect the implications of the decision and what it means for the future of Congress. And speaking of significant developments, last night, President Biden delivered a speech on Israel that has been making headlines across the nation. We'll get Representative Eshoo's take on this important address and its potential impact on U.S.-Middle East relations. But that's not all, folks. Representative Eshoo has her hands full with exciting projects happening in her district, from a cutting-edge electric train to the initiative of artificial intelligence. We'll dive deep into these endeavors and discover what they mean for the 16th District and, more broadly, for the rest of the nation. So, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Representative Anna Eshoo. Well, welcome, Representative Anna Eshoo from California's 16th U.S. House District in California. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've known each other a long time.
A long time.
And you're one of my sheroes for all you have done for my district, for women in the country, the LGBTQ community, veterans, the climate. I could go on, not to mention your daughter was my son's favorite teacher in high school.
Isn't that great?
I know. Karen was
That's great.
Is
That's great. It is.
So
it is.
let's
it's great
start
to be with you.
Well, let's start with today and what's been going on and how this has been affecting you with the constant vote in the Republicans trying to get a speaker.
Well, this is really never taken place in the country before. This is a first since 1789. And it's not the kind of history you really want to make. The House of Representatives is paralyzed. We cannot conduct any business whatsoever. We can't go into session, take up legislation, vote on it. That's all at a standstill because we don't have a speaker. So this morning at 10 a.m., the Republicans they've called the House to order for the purposes of electing a speaker again. And Jim Jordan was nominated by Kevin McCarthy. And roll
You can't
call.
make this up. You can't make this up. If this was a movie, you'd have walked out by now.
I know. Or maybe you'd sit there because you want to see how it ends. At any rate, yesterday's vote for Jim Jordan was the lowest number of votes ever cast in the history of our country in a speaker election. And today, that history was remade because he got even less. So it's my understanding that he's pulling his name out of contention, but who knows? And I have to wonder right now, who would even want the job given a conference that can't bring itself together around any kind of operating principles, as a party, and to come around, an individual that, carries the flag for, the environment or the business community or whatever it may be. But those are not their considerations. So I can't help but observe, Joanne, that they're a group that do not want to be led by anyone.
Yeah,
they just can't bring them. They are the majority in the House of Representatives, but there is no majority within their ranks.
Yeah, I mean, but 90% of them voted for Jim Jordan, even though it was the lowest number ever. It was still 90% of his caucus. And why was he such a bad choice? And who are they going to put up that isn't just as bad of a choice?
Well, from our standpoint, he's a horrible choice, because of number one, that it is documented that he knew about the planning of the insurrection and was a part of it. And then, of course, voted to reject the vote
Biden
count.
being president.
Yeah, exactly, Biden being president. So there's no way that I could ever cross that line. I mean, that's at the core of our democracy.
He still says Biden didn't win, but I keep wondering, are they lying about that? Do they really know he won, but they have to keep saying he didn't? I mean, it's so insane.
Well, I don't think I need to do a deep dive on their intentions. If that's what they're saying, take their word for it.
Yeah,
because it's gone on for a long time to the detriment of our country. So this is worrisome. It's really worrisome. And I mean, time is the most precious thing that's given to us. And when you're here in Congress, you want to optimize every split second to move the ball down the field to get, to get things done.
What is, I mean, like one of the things that the president last night in his speech said, and he wants to bring $106 billion bill to the House to get them to fund the Israeli Hamas war and protection for the Palestinians, and Ukraine and Russian war and protection for the Ukrainians, as well as our southern border. I mean, that's just one huge thing. What can happen if there is no Speaker of the House?
Well, as long as there isn't any Speaker in the House, we can't vote on that supplemental package that the president is sending to the Congress. Now, I believe the Senate will take it up first. I believe the Senate will pass it on a bipartisan vote, and they'll send it over to the House. And I just pray that where we are right now today on the 20th of October at 2:45 in the afternoon, that it won't be the same set of circumstances won't prevail. But if it's sent over to the House and we don't have a speaker, we can't act. And there are millions of people, lives, and their fight to defend their democracies.
And tell me what, for our audience that doesn't know all the ramifications of not having a speaker in the House non-functioning, can you tell us like some of the things that are pending that aren't going to get done?
Well, it's everything. It's everything. You can't, it's the framers of the Constitution gave the House of Representatives the responsibility, the power of the purse, So there isn't anyone else that can do this. President can't just go and sign, a big check. It's the Congress that has to take up the legislation, and only Congress can write a statute. That means writing a law. So whether it's something that pertains to Medicare, whether it's something that pertains to climate change, crime, hiring more Border Patrol agents, all of that can only be approved and by the Congress, put in place by the Congress, both the policy and the money.
And what do you think that this shows people around the globe, like you were saying, people who are trying to protect their own democracies, but our adversaries like Russia and China, they must just be loving our dysfunction?
Well, I think that Mr. Putin especially is gladdened by this because he sees the Klieg lights that were on Ukraine. Our attention has gone elsewhere. That's why, there are those of us that are just so committed in the Congress to ensure that Mr. Putin and his armies are defeated. I often think that if you walk up to just about anyone and say, for X number of dollars, would you be willing to spend X number of dollars to do away with the Russian military? I don't think there's anyone that would say no.
Yes.
Well, that's what this is. That's
Yes.
what this is. We have to remember that Putin brutally invaded Ukraine, and we have no American troops there. They've never asked for them. We're not committing any, but they're fighting so courageously and paying huge prices, the loss of life, to defend and protect their democracy. And he has to be stopped. He rolls over Ukraine. The Europeans know very well. The Europeans know very well that they've seen this movie before. So, Ukraine and its democracy, Israel and its democracy, and the president, I think, has been so effective in his. Well, first of all, Joe Biden is one of the most decent individuals. I mean, he's such a decent and good man, and it comes through. He has, I think, really walked into the hearts of the Israeli people who are in agony, and I think that last night, very wisely, spoke. And it was his wisdom, the wisdom that comes with a lifelong experience, that these are democracies, and so are we. We have this opportunity to show who and what we are to the people of the world.
You're talking about his speech from the Oval Office.
Yes.
I thought it was just brilliant.
Yes. So, Joanne, we have. To me, this is a national disgrace what the Republicans are doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to know that over and over and over again, our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, has said to the Republicans, everything is on the table. We want to work in a bipartisan way to get out of this jam that obviously they've created. So, but they don't want to work with us.
Yeah, who would you see? I know when they say it's working with the enemy. When Jim Jordan said the American people do not want us working with Democrats, I thought he has truly lost his mind. It's all the American people want is everybody working together.
And he lost it a long time ago. But at any rate,
what do you?
I think that. We have, an acting pro tem. And I think if both parties could have come together and agreed on Patrick McHenry, that the Democrats would have accepted him. Mm-hmm. But, now, they've tested that in their conference. They turned it down inside of their own conference. There were votes today for a few from McCarthy, some for Scalise, some for Zeldin, some for, it's scattered. It's scattered, and doesn't seem to be a solid core there. So it's, and for countries around the world, they're scratching their heads.
I bet.
The greatest, most powerful nation, the most important democracy in the world, and this is the way it's elected leaders are conducting themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's bizarre.
It is. It's terrible. It's terrible. But hope. I'm always an optimist as much as I've said so many negative things in this, just answering your questions because so much is wrong that maybe next week. Maybe next
I
week,
love that.
Joanne.
Well, but there's somebody that said, I'm an eternal optimist because what's the alternative? There is none.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Let's go back to the Middle East for a bit. And I would think that there's also this personal impact because your grandparents with your mother fled Armenia back in the day when Turkey was doing an absolute genocide of the Armenians and destroyed a culture that had existed for 2,000 years, which some people may not understand at all. So I can imagine what it's like for you, both for the Israelis that have, have been chased through progroms, the Holocaust, et cetera, for centuries themselves, and not been able to, have peace or protection. And then I'm just wondering what you think of how this whole nightmare is, if there's any way for it to be solved, because the Israelis now are headed to just flatten the Gaza Strip. And Hamas is already underground. It's not going to kill Hamas. And the Palestinians don't like Hamas. And I'm just wondering what it is that you think, because both situations, everybody is being massacred. It's just such a heartbreak.
Well, war is hell.
Yeah.
War is hell. A lot of people don't get out alive. And, my children would say war is not the answer. Israel most certainly has the right to protect and defend itself. And the atrocities committed by Hamas are, I don't even know what the adjectives are to describe it. It's just completely, as has been said, outside anything that we call humanity. So, Israel understands that it can't have, that Hamas is not a friendly neighbor. They have to do everything they can to rid the area of Hamas. Now, in order to do that, it's a very, very complicated, complex undertaking, and we're becoming more and more aware of the details of the complexities every day. Gaza is the most heavily populated small area in the world. There are 2.3 million people that live in an area that is the size of, I don't know, Philadelphia. It's really it's very dense, which adds to the complexity. I'm not an expert in those kinds of undertakings, but they are committed to doing that. And what does that mean for the people in Gaza? The president said that we are committed to humanitarian aid. That we want to make sure that that Hamas doesn't rip it off and steal it, because they've done that before. Because these are civilians, and it almost sounds like an oxymoron, but there are rules of war.
I know it does seem so weird. Laws of war. It's like what?
The laws of war. So, innocent civilians, you need to do everything you can to protect them. Do I think everyone will be protected? That doesn't happen in war. I've never heard of a war that's been waged where no one was injured or killed. So it's
and they've already killed.
Complicated. It's complicated.
5,000. Yeah, they've already killed 5,000 Palestinians. One thing I like to.
I think we have to be careful about who has killed whom. And we'll get the numbers, and then the numbers change. there is the Israelis are going to respond, and the president has said, democracies do things differently. We're not attracted to be a copycat of people that are savages. And so this is, I don't think any of this is going to be easy, Joanne. I just don't. And there's a great deal of suffering. But, all you have to do is look at the charter of Hamas, and it's to rid the world of the state of Israel and to wipe every Jew off the face of this earth.
I know, it's just like horrifying.
So that is in their, that's in their charter. But we have, the United States has its commitments. I want to see us keep them. As a member of Congress, we have to be able to open this place up so that we can do our jobs and take care of the business, not only the critically important business at hand right now, but for everything that we do. We could have a government shutdown. That has not been resolved.
And I forget who of the Republicans had this nonchalant thing. November 17th is a long way away. It's like, what?
Well,
I mean, it's like, it just is like so irresponsible. It's just
crazy. It's highly irresponsible. It really is. So I'd like to we were celebrating something.
I know. I wish we were electing Hakeem Jeffries. One of the things that I think is next January, we're not January 24, but January 25, we'll be electing Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House. That's one of the things. They're completely sinking their majority, and we're going to win back the House. Yay. Yeah. And we're going to win the Senate, and we're going to keep the president. But I'd like to talk to another positive thing, which is what your accomplishments have been in the 30 years, because I live in your district, and I would like to talk about a couple of the big things that are in our district. And I'd love you to say whatever else you would like to. But one of the big ones is the electric train coming to the Bay Area finally, after years of you fighting for it, getting the funding, and it's going to start next fall. It's going to be a huge boon to the area and to climate change. It's going to keep.
Oh, it is.
It's going to be unbelievable.
And it's the electrification of Caltrain. You know what's so interesting to me? The history is such a wonderful thing to be entranced by. Caltrain, that train system, that corridor, was put in place during President Lincoln's administration.
Oh my gosh. And for people who don't know, she's talking about Silicon Valley up to San Francisco.
Right.
That's what she's talking about for folks who don't know.
Right. And then it was under another president from the state of Illinois who embraced and funded the federal money for the electrification of Caltrain.
And that is President Obama, for the people who don't know.
So there was a big push to by the High-Speed Rail Authority to come down the peninsula and tear up, I don't know how much of the peninsula, get rid of Caltrain, and build these 30, 40, 50-foot things in the air for high-speed rail. And I saw something that I'd never seen before, and that is how not to do something, how not to take a project on. I mean, it was every city on the peninsula was suing the High-Speed Rail Authority. And I try as I could to get more information from them and whatever. And I thought about it. And I said, you know what? We can have our own high-speed rail on the peninsula. And that is an electrified Caltrain. And so I just worked my butt off on it.
Yes, you
And,
did. Yes, you did. Over
I
against
did.
lots of
And
opposition.
lots of opposition, but the environmental community came around it. The cities embraced it. The business community embraced it. And so I knew that I had a strong case that I could make federally. And it wasn't easy to do. But the very first tranche of money, some 700 and odd million dollars to begin the electrification. And so now we're almost there. We're almost there. It's going to move faster. It'll be 90% cleaner in terms of any kinds of emissions. It'll carry more people. It'll be far more comfortable. It'll be quieter. And I think that when young people say, what are you doing for our generation that's going to last, that this is one of them.
So great. And congratulations. I know how hard you've worked. Another one that's dear to my heart, and I know is to yours, is about Lyme disease funding.
Yeah.
And you have been in the forefront driving a bipartisan bill in the House and also in the Senate, in which they have tripled funding for Lyme testing and treatments. And Lyme disease, for people who don't know, impact about 500 million people a year in the United States. It's a lot. And that doesn't even include their families and that are impacted so terribly, and their friends. I have lots of friends with Lyme. And so I just want to thank you for that as well. I know you have been a huge
Joanne,
proponent.
thank you for raising it. It's when we started on this with the, you don't get anywhere in Congress without a push from the outside, the advocates. And they've just been fabulous. There wasn't a dime in research for Lyme disease. So that, what we finally got in the beginning and then added to it, and that, as you said, now it's triple the amount that we started with, is so important, because without the research, you're not going to develop something that's going to address the disease. I have always worked so hard to expand research and development, not only on the medical side, but also in the technology as well. And
she, for those of you who don't know, Anna Eshoo is in deep in the midst of the tech world here in Silicon Valley. So I don't know what you'd like to add about that.
Well, you know what I'm really pleased about, because everyone has heard about this new world of AI. I mean, it's not brand new, but to most people it is, because they've never heard of artificial intelligence. And it sounds like an oxymoron too, doesn't it? Artificial intelligence, either intelligence or no intelligence. But at any rate, so I've been, working to help to educate members of Congress so that they understand it. We have an AI caucus. It's bipartisan, so I've done lots of work on that. And lo and behold, Time magazine in their September issue named the 100 most influential people in artificial intelligence, and your congresswoman is one of the 100.
Oh,
so I'm pleased about that. You know what else I'm really very proud of, Joanne, is establishing not just one but two, actually three research agencies. New ADA. That's a very hard thing to do. One of them is BARDA, which is highly successful, and people in the private sector rave about their partnerships in order to bring biotech products to market. That's all to the benefit of the American people. In the last Congress, I got the legislation through for ARPA-H. You've probably heard of DARPA. That's on the defense side, and that's been highly, highly successful. It's a small agency. It's nimble. If they, what the undertakings are, if they fail, they move right on. They move right on. And it actually was the president's vision that there be an ARPA-H for health. And the mission of ARPA-H is to find the cures for the diseases that today are not, we haven't conquered yet. Pancreatic cancer. These diagnoses are death sentences. They're death sentences today. So I'm so proud of that. And that was in the last Congress, and it was broadly bipartisan, and it's now a reality. And years ago, it did ARPA-E for the environment. So that stands too. So I'm proud of those things.
You've done so much, Anna, and that is not just for our district, that's for the entire country, and on some level for the world, because we have the most innovation in the world. Our country's large, it's wealthy, so of course that makes sense. So you've done so much.
A major breakthrough. Look at our vaccines. Vaccines are very, very, very tough to develop, and the legislation that I did became the place where that vaccine was developed, and that was for humankind. That was for humankind.
Yeah.
No, it saved millions and millions and millions of people's lives. So, yeah, our work is
it's great,
important.
And I think that this whole fear of AI needs to be impacted, because it's not all bad. It's not all terrifying.
No,
and in fact, my son is a co-founder of a group. The aforementioned son who loved your daughter in high school is one of the co-founders of Cube 3, which is doing AI security, which is what we really also need to implement as well. So thank you for all that you've done.
Oh, yes. Well, it's, one member is just one member. You have to pull a lot of people together. So I give enormous credit to, the members that were there in the beginning to co-sponsor the legislation, to help me push and pull in order to get it done. And the remarkable scientists from both Stanford and UCSF that were so key in and the work that they did as well. So, it takes a lot, but
it takes a lot. And your personality and perseverance is great. And I wish you would blow your own horn and tell people what you do, because that is going to be very important for people to know everything you've done, Congresswoman Eshoo.
I want to thank you for your commitment, Joanne. You are never, ever, ever, ever give up on anything. When you're in, that's right. You're in it. That's it. And promoting and elevating women, the work that you've done. It's an honor roll of undertakings, and we're nothing without good people with us. And I've had the best because I've had you with me in this journey. I mean it. I can't thank you enough. So I have to get ready to leave.
I know. You've got to come back home.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking your time on this very busy day. And before you have to run to the airport, I can't thank you enough, Anna. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. And thank you to your crew.
Thank you,
Scott. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Safe travels.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. The Speaker of the House that was gone through 3 different votes today, the third being the last vote. I still want to talk about Jim Jordan as a candidate that 90% of the Republican House of Representatives voted for. This is who they want to have be Speaker of the House. The scary part about it, even though he has now withdrawn his name, or I should say, the conference voted and said he had to withdraw his name. They're going to start again on Monday, but I want to remind everybody, this is who they thought should be Speaker of the House. He actually wants to burn down the House, and I am not kidding. It's a travesty. This has been decades long work of the far right and their propaganda machine, Fox News, to try and destroy faith in democracy and government institutions of all sorts. They want a fascist, strong-arm government. And I know everybody thinks I'm always like, Joanne, but I've been right every time. He was running because he thinks that they will be protected. The people who want a strong-arm person think they are going to be protected. But if they get on the wrong side of the strong man, look at what has happened with the strong man Trump, who currently is running the Republican Party. When someone went on the wrong side of him, his top general, he said that that general should be executed. He actually said that. He also threw in, if you shoplift, you should be shot on your way out the door. Well, Jim Jordan is an insurrectionist. He helped Trump work on the January 6th coup. He refused to answer a subpoena from the January 6th committee. He claims that Biden is still not the president, that he was never elected. I don't even believe he believes that. I think that he has to talk about that because he supported all the lawsuits attempting to disqualify Biden. He did so many things that are really frightening. One of which is writing a bill that said that there would be an entire abortion ban nationwide with no exceptions. But luckily, he has never in his 16 years passed a law. So it just shows you what it is that he really wants. It is to end any voting in the House and make this a country that is not a democracy. So it's really, really frightening that this is what he wants to do. So, but again, even though he has said that he wants to stop and take his name out, I want to remind everybody he's still the head of the Judiciary Committee that has started to impeach President Biden, even though the first day they did that was televised. All of their witnesses said there was no reason to do it, that there was no evidence. Then the other part is, before he came to the House, he was the assistant coach at Ohio State University in wrestling. Hundreds of the young men in that wrestling team were molested by the team doctor, and many of them have testified that Jim Jordan knew about it and did nothing about it. And so here he is doing it all again. So I just want to say that 90% of the Republicans voted for him. And that is the other side that we have to be very worried about. This is why you have to vote for Democrats. Again, I don't care what side of the divide you're on. It's super important if you want to have a democracy at the end of 2024. Now, I also want to talk about the wars. We can't ignore that. There's so many around the world, but let's start with Israel and Hamas. The brutality that Hamas did to Israel killed 1,300 Israelis in one day on October 7th, which was a high holy day for the Jewish people. I think it's really important to talk about history here. I know this is a little bit of a history lesson, but I'll make it quick, but it's very important. The Jews have been enslaved, tortured, and killed throughout history, all through the world. The programs in Russia, Poland, Germany, Austria, Romania, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Yugoslavia, Greece, Croatia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Turkey, Romania, Morocco, Algeria, and Iran. And then with the Grand Holocaust, this systematically killed 6 million Jews throughout Europe. They were hoping for a country of safety and relief after the Holocaust. But here's a bit of the history lesson. The world did not intervene in the slaughter of 12 million people that Hitler wrought on Europe, 6 million of them Jews. He took over Europe in 14 years. That's how long it took him to take over Europe, kill 12 million people in doing it. And it wasn't until Hitler decided he was going after England that the United States got involved. But I want to talk about this, what people talk about as the two-state solution between Palestine and Israel. And I also want to mention the Palestinians are not Hamas. A very, very small group of people are the Hamas killers, 30,000 compared to 2.5 million people who live in the Gaza Strip. It would be like saying the Proud Boys and the insurrectionists that did January 6th are United States. This is what everybody in the United States believes. It's a very small percentage of the United States that believes anything that happened on January 6th was a good idea. But after World War II, Britain occupied the Middle East, like they did in so many parts of the world. And they created Israel, smack dab in the middle of the Middle East, and took the Palestinian land in 1948. I want to say something that people are not going to like, but was the total point, besides giving Jews a homeland, or give it back to the Jews after many thousands of years, give it back to the Jews, I'm going to say is because they did not want the Jews going back to their European countries from which they were displaced during the Holocaust, and to keep them out of the United States and Britain. The United States would not allow Jews to immigrate during World War II, even when we knew they were being slaughtered in huge numbers, unless they were very wealthy. They had to put up a $250,000 bond to get family members or friends into the United States. The Palestinians had their land stolen in 1948 by the British, and then 1967 again by the Israelis, when their territory in the Gaza and the West Bank became occupied by the Israelis. The two-state solution that people talk about would mean that Palestine would actually be a country. I know that may be a surprise. It is not a country. It is an occupied piece of land. The total population in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which you hear about, is 5 million people. Imagine one ethnic group having no votes, no rights, no ability to move in any direction, having no opportunity. Netanyahu, who is the head of Israel, does not want a two-state solution, although many, many, many people in the world believe that is the only way to stop this violence. To keep the Middle Easterners, to keep the Palestinians, to stop Hamas from trying to kill every Jew. If they had their own country, Israel had their own country, and then this two-state solution would give the Palestinians some relief. But we can't allow the people, the Hamas, to just kill people however it is that they want to. So that the solution is not an easy one. The Palestinian Authority, which is the moderate arm of the authority in the Palestine, wants a two-state solution. Netanyahu will not negotiate with him because Netanyahu wants to control the whole area. It's so hard for us to understand this because it's just never been our situation. A foreign war has never been fought in the United States. We've had a civil war, but that has not happened to our country. So we have no idea what it's like to be a country that has Hamas saying, we want to destroy you. Now to move to the Ukrainian-Russian war, this is another one. The only two people happy about the war in Israel and Palestine is Trump, who called Hezbollah, which is an arm of Hamas in Lebanon, which is the country to the north of Israel, who is now bombing Israel because Trump said they were smart and that Netanyahu was stupid. Putin also chimed in and said that Trump was totally right and supported him. Those are the only two people who are really excited about the war in Israel and Palestine, because it takes the light bulb off of the Ukrainian-Russian war. Russia walked into Ukraine thinking they were going to take it over a year and about 20 months ago, but that is not what happened. And many people in our country want to defund the Ukrainian war, the Ukrainians trying to work on saving their homeland. And I'm going to tell you something that you're also not going to want to hear, but that Putin is helping those politicians. They're getting money to them. They are helping them with their campaigns, just like Putin did for Trump in 2016. There's more that I could say, and I'm certainly saying there is no way anybody has a right to kill people in Israel, period, end of story. We have to see what we can do to give dignity to both sides and to help fund all people trying to protect themselves in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Please vote for Democrats. Thank you very much.